Just trying it out.
Are we ready? Yeah. Okay, I'll call the meeting to order, please. Nothing from our agenda. First item is agenda amendments and adoption of the agenda.
I have no additions.
No additions, okay.
I have nothing, Your Worship.
Nothing, Your Worship.
Your Worship, Councillor Blockland and I have attended WIDEMSA, and on the WIDEMSA report there is a piece of new business that we'd like to add with regards to the anniversary of WIDEMSA.
Where did you want to add that in?
At your pleasure, Your Worship.
Could we just add that under council invitations?
It may have a small monetary factor regarding a gift of recognition for their
Okay.
anniversary.
So do you want it under new business?
I
And
think
to put
so.
it under 813?
New business would be the most appropriate.
I think that would be 813.
Thank you.
Remind me, please. Councilor Fuel?
Yes, Your Worship. Just one item. I've been in contact with our CAO about this, and I had a further question from a resident about improving drainage at Maplewood Drive and Brent Boulevard. A question about that.
And so do you want that under new business?
Sure.
Okay, 814. Just list that as drainage.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Councilor Rempel, do you have anything to add?
For Your Worship.
And I have nothing to add.
And I'm gonna let Jen give a couple of changes.
Yes, Your Worship. You all have a sheet in front of you, so there's a few changes to the original agenda. 5.3 Strathmore Library has been added. 8.12 Gas Tax Fund / New Building Canada Fund. Deletions 8.9 Executive Assistant to the CAO. And then there's also amendments. So we'll be moving item 8.2 to item 8.1. And item 8.5 to item 8.2. And all the other items will be shifted down accordingly.
And I would ask that you make sure that you keep us on track because of all the changes on this, please.
I move the agenda as amended, Your Worship.
There's a motion on the floor. Any discussion? Seeing none? All in favor? Carried. And adoption of the minutes of the May 7th regular council meeting.
Your Worship,
Councilor Fuel?
if I could just make a change to one. If you could turn to page 9 on the Strathmore Youth Club report. The second sentence says the club has sold 400 tickets for the Friday Night Laughs event. We have sold 200. So I don't want to give the impression that it's a sellout yet. We still need people to buy tickets.
Okay,
So if any of the councillors need a laugh other than these meetings.
Councilor, Deputy Mayor Sullivan?
Just a minor addition, I guess, Your Worship. There's seems to be a word missing in 5.1 under delegations of the Hucksteads. The phrase that is in the minutes right now says, Mr. Huckstead explained the composting program can reduce by 25%. I'm going to assume that means can reduce landfill. So if we could just get that word added, I think that would be fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other changes?
Worship, I'd move the council adopt the May 7th, 2014 council meeting as amended.
Motion's on the floor. Any discussion? Seeing none? All in favor? Carried. First item on the agenda is our first delegation, Community Standards Bylaw Part 8, Anti-Bullying. And we have somebody who wishes to come and speak to council in regards to our recent anti-bullying bylaws that we passed. And Jonathan, would you like to step forward here, have a chair, and
thank you, Your Honor. Members of council, On Wednesday, April 16th, the Council made some amendments to various bylaws, including sidewalk snow removal, signs, control of nuisances such as weeds in unusual or unsightly premises, graffiti, and bullying. In my opinion, the amendment for the bullying bylaw will be ineffectual due to the fact that this bylaw is mainly aimed at the youth, and that no teenagers will pay attention to the law if they are unaware of it. If we want kids to understand the importance of bullying and how much a fine against bullying will cost them, I propose that Council sends 2 members to each school that the law pertains to and informs them of the consequences and extensions and the fines that bullying entails.
Would you mind if we have a few questions to ask?
Sure.
Okay. Any member of council? Councilor Walls?
Your worship, I do. Thank you very much for coming in. First of all, my first question would be, do you think it'd be better off to send a peace officer to speak to the students as per a counselor?
I think it would be nice if the peace officers were there to support the counselors, but since teenagers often hear from peace officers about various issues, I believe it would be more beneficial for the teens and the kids to hear from the counselors themselves. That way, it can stress them the importance of this issue.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions? Councilor Peterson?
Jonathan, in our previous discussion, when you brought this up with me, I told you that I would bring it to my students, although they are not from Strathmore, they use the park extensively. And when I brought it to them, they were most supportive of your proposal, and they talked about why it was important why they thought it was more important for counselors to attend to the schools, and why it would be more beneficial. And your response is exactly in tandem and cohesive and in agreement with what they've said. And they made a further suggestion that they passed on to you in their interest in the rest of the bylaw as well. And I didn't know if you wanted to bring that up.
Yes, I have it here.
Thank you.
So the students where Ms. Peterson works brought up a fun activity and idea which I think I would like to share. They thought that people saw signs in the park that showed times and when the parks are open and fines for littering, that it would be helpful and that people would be more responsive to the bylaw. Moreover, they thought of a fun way to persuade the youth's involvement in cleaning our parks. So if teens under 18 years old took selfies of themselves picking up or throwing out garbage and sent it to the town could put it in a jar and in the months of June, July, and August, pick 1 or 2 winners from a bucket and give them a pass maybe to the swimming pool for the entire winter-long season. And that might just maybe generate a bit more involvement from the youth.
Any other questions? No? Then I'll close. Jonathan, thanks very much. You've got some really great ideas that we can follow up on, and hopefully administration got all of those ideas. I particularly liked your idea of putting the signs in regards to when the park may be used. Your fines, posting those is a good idea, and doing the selfies in regards to cleaning up.
Those weren't necessarily mine, they were brought to me.
Okay.
Great ideas.
From his initiative, though.
Yeah, but your initiative, you bring them here, and that helps us. When the citizens of this town come and talk to us like this, that makes our job that much easier so we can do a better job. And on behalf of all of council, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Okay. Do we want to have somebody direct administration in regards to following up on those? Do we want to do it as a motion?
I don't think
Or
we need
just-
a motion at this point, just the direction.
Just a direction? Okay. Then I will take the initiative and direct administration to follow up on those suggestions from Jonathan Moore. You need anything further on that? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item on the agenda is the delegation for the Strathmore United Way Committee. Page 17.
Your Worship,
Yeah.
members of council,
Good evening.
just a quick report with good news regarding the Strathmore United Way Partnership. With many thanks to the town of Strathmore, its residents, and businesses for supporting our fundraising activities. the Calgary United Way, as well as private and corporate donations received, the Strathmore and United Way Partnership Committee was able to assist 11 local not-for-profit organizations with funding this year. Within our mandate and chosen philosophy of healthy families, strong communities, and all that kids and seniors can be, it's with great pleasure that we can announce today that a total of $50,000 for the 2014 funding year has been distributed back into our community. It's the hope of this committee that as awareness of our presence increases, and with your continued support within the coming years, we'll be able to assist an even greater number of organizations supporting the programs that bring our community together. We thank you very kindly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Just thanks. That's amazing and wonderful.
Thanks to the citizens. of Strathmore.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Thank you very kindly.
Next item on our agenda to be brought forward is delegation from the Strathmore Library. Oh, there we are. I don't have a page for that. May we ask that you introduce yourselves, please?
I was planning on it. Thank you. My name is Jim Greer. I'm the chair of the library board. With me tonight is our director of library services, Rachel Dick Hughes. We have a PowerPoint presentation. We'll just bring that up. So, all right. Okay. All right. First of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak tonight. Basically, what we would like to discuss is we would like to get council's input on how the library positions itself for the future. The library is a valuable resource to the community. Residents of Strathmore and Wheatland County rely on the library to provide numerous opportunities, chief among them, lifelong learning. We do this through resources beyond the traditional image of the library, such as ebooks, public computer access, free instructions in technology, programming for all ages of patrons, providing space to both nonprofits and other groups in the community. Our goal is to ensure that the library supports and enhances the town's own goal of providing services and programs that meet the needs of families and serve to grow and promote Strathmore. We've been successful over our recent history in developing that growth through the growth in how the residents use the library. Patron visits have more than doubled. Patronage, people through the door, has also doubled, as has circulation. Interlibrary loans are up 500%. You need a bigger desk here. Public computer access is up 150%. We're offering more programs than ever before, both ongoing favorites like summer reading and story time, as well as new programs like family programs on school holidays, information technology tutoring, office services, public access to high-speed internet, low-cost video conferencing, and e-leader lending. We provide various programs for Strathmore's disabled, and we provide study space and exam supervision on an as-needed basis. Finally, we provide public space with no access fees, as you can see being used by Danielle Smith. And we support the community through events like food bank drives. Unfortunately, though, we've reached the limits of our current space. We've spoken before about the lack of space. Suffice to say that our current space is 57% of what the Government of Alberta standards say we should have for a library serving our population. In 2012, we hired consultants to review our current facilities and use, examine future trends and growth, and make recommendations to the library board. Their findings are that the library, in addition to her current role, will expand in importance for residents of Strathmore. Residents will rely on the library more as a gathering place to keep in touch with the community. Residents will expect more programming for all ages on a wider variety of topics than we currently provide now. There's an old wives' tale that as the internet would expand, libraries would become less and less relevant. In actual fact, the opposite is becoming true. In the age of technology, libraries are becoming more important, not less. Libraries have always been and will continue to be the place where residents can come for information they can trust. This is even more important in an age where anyone can post anything on the internet. Librarians are trusted providers of information to the citizens of Strathmore. If you're looking for further proof of libraries' importance in the future, consider that 1/4 of library users are ages 10 through 19. If people are using the library when they're young, they're more likely to continue to use the library as they mature. The same principle is used by hockey, minor golf, minor soccer. If they can get people interested when they're young, they'll play it as an adult and they'll support it as an adult. Same holds true for the library. As part of the needs assessment, consultants included a public survey. Consistently, the limiting factor in using the Strathmore Library is space-related issues. Lack of books, videos, CDs, and other resources were identified by both adults and students. And the space issue will only get more constricting as the town grows, if the library does not. Next one, please. This chart is a breakdown of the library-related space needs according to Alberta standards. Added to this are the spaces for programming, meetings, craft, storage, and other common needs. Total programming space would be 1,000 to 1,700 square feet more than that. Collaborative learning, technology-assisted learning, is a need ideally suited for the library to assist with in smaller communities. We're already drawing an example of this through our partnership with Bow Valley College. One of the main reasons why they chose the space in the library was because we have wireless access to high-speed internet. In total, the assessment identifies the space requirement for the library of 12,788 square feet. We currently have 4,432. That's excluding the meeting rooms. Moving to 12,000 square feet will supply the town needs for 20 years, or until the population reaches approximately 18,000 people. Frankly, it's the only way to move forward. The consultants identified 5 options that we could pursue. But of these options, the 2 most reasonable choices to move forward are either being part of a joint public multi-use facility or expansion of the current facility at the Lambert Center. We've had some preliminary discussions with other groups, but frankly, the major player in a multi-use facility is the town. And with the Lambert Center, well, it's your building. I don't think we could build onto it without your permission. Ultimately, the board members are your stewards. We need to work together to enhance our service to the residents. And we need to know what you think and basically to ask for your help. So what I wanted to do here is open a discussion on 4 points. A brief discussion, admittedly, because there's a lot of people sitting behind me. But the first thing is, what are council's expectations and preferences for a library expansion project? Where would you like to see us? In the downtown with a multi-use facility? What do you want? The second would be, where does library expansion sit in council's priorities for capital projects? Every year, you go through the process of determining the future needs of the town. Frankly, we need to know where we sit in those needs of yours. What support does council think it can provide for library expansion in the future? We're not here tonight asking for money. Right now, we need your ideas and your help. And finally, what steps and process does council need from the library board as this project moves forward? There's no point in having this discussion if we don't take steps. And we need to know what steps you need us to take in order to keep you informed and keep you, frankly, keep you supporting the idea of the growth of the library. So that's my presentation. Now I'd like to start by asking you, what are your expectations and preferences for library expansion?
I didn't see who, Councillor Fuel?
Just a question through the chair to Mr. Greer. I was on the library board for 3 years, and I was a part of the decision to have the facility needs assessment done. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought one of the recommendations or one of the things mentioned in the report was to not look at expansion of the Lambert Center. They did not see that as a really good alternative. Is that correct, or am I wrong on that?
They did not. It was not one of their first recommendations. In part because they thought that there were infrastructure issues with the Lambert Center.
Does the new library board have a more positive feeling about expanding current Lambert Center?
Yes, we do. Frankly, the Lambert Center offers a number of positives. There's ample parking. There's already major infrastructure such as the SuperNet. One of the best is the fact that people know where we are, so there wouldn't need to be any sort of marketing plan or that sort of information to move people. People are used to going to the library in the Lambert Center, and expansion there would continue that. Being downtown, we would still be supporting the downtown, and we would still be working traffic through there. And there is still, a library needs foot traffic, just like any store does. That's why there's still a significant amount of foot traffic in the library. With the other partners in the Lambert Center, the Bow Valley College, the WFCSS, they also provide foot traffic for the library as well. There's a symbiotic relationship between the two. So although the consultants in the library needs assessment, then one of the main reasons why they didn't want to grow there was a worry about mold. We believe the mold issues have been addressed, and through an expansion project, there would also have to be renovation of our current space as well. We feel that any infrastructure issues would be dealt with at the time.
Okay. My only other comment is that I would love the idea of keeping the library in the downtown area. So I would be in favor of if your board is positive about the Lambert Center. I think that might be a good alternative, and I'm a big proponent of that downtown area, and anything we can do to keep people coming down there would be awesome.
Councillor Rempel?
Yeah, to the chair, to Jim. My suggestion would be that you leave these 4 points with us so that we can, as a council and administration, discuss them amongst ourselves, come up with the appropriate answers and timelines for you, and then invite you back. And if you want to do this at a public meeting, I'd be happy to have you folks come back, and we could discuss or give you our response at that time, because we may not all have the same answers here, and in order to come to a united conclusion, I think we need time to discuss this amongst ourselves.
Well, that's fair. I wouldn't make a decision in haste, repent in leisure. So I can understand a need for discussion amongst yourselves. As I said, if we don't come to this, if we don't bring it before you, it doesn't get started. So we need that. If the council needs time to make a discussion, and they have a date and a time when they would like to come back to us, I'd like to invite us back. That would be more than suitable for us. The key, though, is to move forward on this. If we can have a commitment as to a time that you would be willing to invite us back, I'm sure we would certainly be able to clear our schedule and make it there.
During this term of council.
That's 3 years. I'm sorry. No,
No,
that's.
Councillor Peterson.
I want to first of all thank you for the presentation. It was really informative, and even sitting on the library board, I learned things that I didn't know. But one thing that is absolutely certain is the extraordinary service that we're getting from our library. It is remarkable, the growth in our library, and we know that that the support that we've gotten from current board and staff, prior to my involvement in there, is very, very much responsible for this, and it's a wonderful story for our community, and you just deserve so much congratulations. Second point is that I'm really supportive in terms of inclusion. It's a conversation that's happened at this table before, and I can certainly assure you that the library, Strathmore Library, is a partner that everybody wants. So that's something that that will definitely happen. I know that in the future, whether it's partnership through support of an existing facility or a multi-use facility, I know that is something that will find support here. And finally, I think that we'll definitely have you back before the fall. And thank you.
Thank you. I just want to point out, though, that in response to your first point, the person and the people who deserve any thanks for the growth of the library are sitting on my right, and that is the Director of Library Services and the staff.
Yeah.
It's the dedication of our staff that makes any and all of our success possible. So don't thank me, thank her.
Deputy Mayor Sullivan.
Thanks. Thank you to both for coming. As a former board member and a regular user of the library, I understand how busy it is, and I certainly, supporting it is the easy part. I guess the reason I have difficulty with the questions is because we can sit here and discuss how much we support you guys all day long, but at the end of the day, you know what it's going to come down to? It's going to come down to dollars.
Yeah.
Whether we can support you, that's the question, and what those numbers are. So, we can have this philosophical discussion all we want, but if we want to get this done, we've got to look at numbers, and the expansion of the present library facility is a heck of a lot different than what the premise for your last visit was, which was basically going to be a brand new building and at many, many millions of dollars. And I guess where I'm going with this is if we want to have some serious conversation about this, we have to know some figures, because that's what this all comes down to. I don't think you're going to have any question finding 7 councillors that support the library. The question is going to be whether the taxpayers can afford to build an addition. And until we know those numbers, it's a very tough decision to have.
I totally understand and respect that. As part of the facility needs assessment, there were numbers in it. Expansion of the current site was ballparked at $6.7 million. A brand new facility was ballparked at 7.6. So we're already looking at basically choosing an affordable option, the more affordable the options. Including in a multi-use facility would probably be less, but it would still be expensive. We also recognize that resources are limited for council. This project won't go forward without provincial granting. And one of the points that we need your support from is support of that when we go to the province. That's also partly why a multi-use facility would be good, because then if we have multiple users, I know that from past experience, the province are much more willing to support projects where there are multiple users involved rather than just one. But on ourselves personally, we also know that one of the things we're going to need to do is we're going to need to do our own fundraising. We already have some seed money, basically a capital fund in place. We have just received our, we are in the process of applying for, and I believe we've just received our charitable number. So we can now fundraise, we can now step up our fundraising programs, and we are moving forward with that as well. This isn't going to be the only presentation I make. We're going to have to start moving forward with the service group, some of the known fundraisers such as the Lions and the Kinsmen, people who have in the past supported major projects in the town, and we're going to have to bring them on board. If I can quote Winston Churchill, this isn't the beginning of the end, this is the end of the beginning. So we have a lot of work ahead of us, and we recognize that, and we recognize your concerns, but we need to move forward on this and we need to bring a lot of people involved in it. And one of those people is the town council. Yeah. One of those groups is town council.
Thanks, Jim. Councilor Buckland?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through the chair to Jim. Some of my questions have already been answered, but in order for me to be involved in discussions in the next month or 3 months on this, expanding the present library, I was concerned about the integrity of that building.
Mm.
You mentioned 6.7 or 7.2 or whatever for a brand new building.
7.6.
Yeah, okay. There is several different sized larger buildings in the downtown core. Is there any options of looking at them?
There were options in the facility needs assessment. The ballpark figure for converting a large building, now again, you're talking about we need a building of more than 12,000 square feet. So to my mind, there's only one building. The facility needs assessment ballparked that expansion at 5.1, and that does not include purchase of the building. So the numbers are comparable with all due respect. You're then also getting into other issues with needing to move, as I said, needing to move the SuperNet because those would not be SuperNet sites. It is an option. It was an option that was reviewed in the assessment. It's probably, I would say, the third priority.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Any further questions?
I have no questions. I would just like to say in response to your comments, Mr. Greer, that this town is in a growth mode, and we know that you don't expect this to be done in a day. And I really appreciate your comments that it is the end of the beginning.
Yeah.
And we are in a situation where our schools, our town office, our recreation facility, our Marigold Library, all are in need of expansion. All are looking for partnership. I think this is a really hopeful time, and our library might be suffering for space, but it is not suffering from any other affliction. And for a library in our community, that's wonderful news.
Well, thank you. And if there is a building for a town office or a recreational facility or a new school, I'd certainly like to keep this in mind because, as I said, a multi-use facility is also being part of a multi-use facility is also a strong, viable option for us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming tonight and reminding us of our duties. And we will be in touch in the very near future. I'm not going to give a specific date, but it's something that we as council have to start discussing because, as Councillor Peterson said, there are lots of issues on the plate right now, and we've got to come up with some solutions. So thank you for your time tonight.
I'll keep calling.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to our other member of our library board who's present tonight as well.
Oh, yeah, Richard, sorry.
Richard.
Yeah, Richard Woodford is the actual vice chair. Sorry.
Nate,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next item on our agenda is new business and 8.1 Seniors Week. And that's originally by FCSS.
Evening, ladies.
Good evening, Your
Good
Worship
evening.
and Council. Seniors Week is June 2nd to 8th. FCSS, in conjunction with several other organizations, have put together quite a fun-filled week. So if you're a senior, you'll be very lucky to be living in Strathmore for the week of June 2nd through 8th. Monday, we're going to start in conjunction with the public library, getting crafty with my grandparent from 4 to 5. And then Tuesday, we're doing a rocking pancake breakfast in conjunction with the Strathmore Fire Department and Strathmore FCSS. And then the Growing Families Society is doing lunch and barbecue tips on Tuesday as well. And then they're going to go from there and head over to the Happy Gang Senior Center and have an afternoon tea and social. And then Wednesday, we're going to give them just some relaxing time with their grandkids, and they're just going to do some pool time and some exercising. Because then we get to start on Thursday and have an information center at the FCSS boardroom to learn about reducing fall risks for seniors and about Lifeline should you happen to fall. And then they're going to head back to the municipal library for a seniors tea and film, where they're going to be doing a screening of Saving Mr. Banks. And Friday, they'll hop over to the Happy Gang Seniors Club again for a crib tournament. And then Sunday, we're going to do Picnic in the Park, sponsored again by Strathmore FCSS. And we have the native dancing and Siksika dancers and drummers coming as well to perform for our seniors and groups of all ages, actually. And that is, most of all of these are free to attend. And so that's why we'd like you to proclaim Seniors Week, June 2nd to 8th.
Any questions? Deputy Mayor Silver?
I do have one. I'm always confused. So what age is a senior?
You're welcome to attend.
Yes.
That was a given. I wasn't worried about me. I was worried about Councilor Walls.
Oh, thank you.
We would like you all to attend if you want. Some of them, yeah, that'd be great.
It's just amazing, you guys. I'm telling you, this is serious organization stuff. It's excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I would move that we declare June 2nd to 8th, 2014, Strathmore Seniors Week. And thank you.
Thank you.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
And thank you for bringing this information to us. Some of us sitting at this council indeed do qualify. We don't have to worry about the age, we already know.
Well, we're hoping that we'll see some of you helping flip pancakes on for the rockin' pancake breakfast, and you know.
Sounds like a plan.
All right.
8.5, I think.
8.2 Seniors Advisory Committee. Thank you.
Yes, Your
Seniors
Worship.
Advisory Committee, please.
Yes, Your Worship, that's me. Earlier this spring, Council held their council workshop, and during the workshop, administration was instructed to bring back a terms of reference for a Seniors Advisory Committee. So what has happened is we've drafted that terms of reference, and we're now bringing it back to Council pretty much to get their take on what we've drafted. if council is satisfied with the terms of reference that's before them, it's recommended that council pass the terms of reference and establish the committee. If not, administration is looking for suggestions.
Do we have questions? Yes. Councillor Peterson?
I do have a question, Jennifer. First of all, I want to thank you for the amount of work that administration went to. I know that there's very little paper here, but I know how much work you went to, and I'm really appreciative of that. I had a question on the third bullet under the terms of reference, which says provides advice to town council through the FCSS regarding activities that affect seniors. Does this mean that the seniors themselves would not bring the voice to the table, that the voice that would come to council would be the voice of FCSS?
Yeah, I believe that was our intent, is that anything, because the committee, as we have drafted it, would report to FCSS, or would be run under FCSS, sorry for better words there, that FCSS would then bring those concerns or those comments back to council. That was administration's idea. If council wants something else, we certainly can.
It is my suggestion. One of the things that in my extensive conversations and ongoing conversations with seniors in the community, primary to everything else around establishing a council, was that the senior voice be one that was heard specifically. And so I have no concern with the other terms of reference, but this one I do have concerns with. There were other things that have been also brought up, but they are in addition to this, so that's the only comment that I have to make. Other than that, I can support this completely and in its entirety. I would say that in terms of being supported by FCSS, I do have some concerns because of the deficit in FCSS right now and because there's some struggles. So around budgeting, I do have concerns with that, but I trust that is something that can be managed in the future. And FCSS in other communities has done an admirable job of combining the resources to support seniors councils. And Red Deer County Council, Grand Prairie, both of those have been very successful with their seniors councils. So I do think that it is a good model.
Any further questions? Councillor Fuel?
Yeah, a question through the chair to Councillor Peterson. I'm just trying to follow your train of thought. Do you have concerns that the current startup and first year deficit of the FCSS may affect the viability of a seniors advisory council under that umbrella? Is that your worry?
Yes, that is my concern.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I think that it's a very little amount of money that it takes to support a seniors council. In my research, from Medicine Hat to Red Deer County to other communities that support seniors councils of populations that are even greater than Strathmore, anything in excess of $10,000 would be looked at as almost exorbitant. And so funding for seniors council is usually related to meeting space where it's required, where in this case I don't think that would be the case. And usually a small amount of money set aside for 2 members of the seniors council to attend provincial conferences. Grey Matters is the one that typically happens in Alberta. And so the funding matter is something I think that the town is well positioned to contribute to the existing FCSS budget if it needed to support it. And I do support the model that you've brought forward to council. I really do support it. My concern, Councillor Fuel, is just simply that one of voice, that seniors have been very clear that they want it to be their voice that comes to this table.
So so dealing with the financial part, that's okay. But would you are you looking to see something in here where the reporting to council not necessarily be done through FCSS? Would you want a rider in there that would show that the seniors would provide advice to the council, not necessarily through an FCSS representative?
What I would suggest, Councillor Fuel, is that it be left in the hands of the seniors advisory council, And to do that, I would only suggest that on bullet 3, the term through FCSS be removed. That's the only suggestion that I have in this document. If there are no further questions, Your Worship, I have some other issues.
Councillor Whipple?
I just want to support Councillor Peterson and I concur with that suggestion.
Further questions then, Councillor Peterson?
I just wanted to say that in talking to people from the seniors in the Strathmore community, they are really excited about this, and they see tremendous potential beyond the terms of reference that are stated here, although not limited by them. Partnerships for Marigold and with the Family Community Support Services, with the personal care networks and the family care in recreation, having additional support through the Happy Gang in terms of voice. Being a united voice to the National Seniors Council, to bring through Town Council to AUMA resolutions, such as the one proposed earlier by Councillor Walls, and also to the Seniors Advisory Council of Alberta, or SACA. Also, they want to be an authoritative voice with regards to issues of low-income seniors, bring to the forefront issues on elder abuse. They want to look at attracting older workers into the local workforce, and to create strategies to help those in the workforce be able to retain positions, and to focus on issues of senior isolation, particularly for seniors in rural environments. They would like to develop a collaborative effort to keep seniors in their homes for as long as possible. And most Strathmore seniors with whom I spoke expressed interest in working in collaboration with other communities within the County of Wheatland. They were firm in their belief that many county residents would move to Strathmore to retire or to access assisted living accommodation. For this reason, they believe it is important to unite their voices in the interest of the common good for Strathmore and surrounding community, and they are confident that if the County of Wheatland also strikes a Seniors Council, that the councils will work cooperatively together into the future. And that's all I have. Thank you, Your Worship. And I am prepared to move this recommendation that Council establish a Seniors Advisory Committee for the Town of Strathmore and adopt the terms of reference as amended for the committee as presented.
As amended?
With the removal of the 2 words through FCSS on the 3rd bullet on page 49.
There's a motion on the floor. We can now enter discussion.
Your Worship, I just wanted to say, you know, if that's what you and Councillor Rempel feel is important, I have no problems deleting the through FCSS. I'm sure the advisory committee will come up with a good way to provide advice and report to Town Council the way they see fit.
Are you saying Councillor Rempel and I because we're old?
Well, no, I would never say that. You couldn't hear it.
Any further discussion? We have a motion on the floor, amended motion on the floor. All in favor? Carried. I think our next item on the list is 8.3, Cooperative Stormwater Management Initiative. And that's page 19. We're going to get a bigger table. We could get a bigger table. Oh,
Good evening, Your Worship, Council.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I brought some folks from NPE Engineering with me this evening to take us through some information on the Cooperative Stormwater Management Initiative. It's an initiative that We've been efforting to keep council up to speed and providing information on this initiative with council. This started a few years ago with the WID and WaterSmart, and we recently brought in MPE Engineering to do a engineering assessment of stormwater management options. And so this evening, we've got MPE here this evening to take us through those options and give us a bit of an overview of what they've arrived at with the final report for the engineering assessment. So I'll turn it over to Colin McNabb and David Seeliger from MPE Engineering.
Thank you, Jesse, and thank you, Your Worship and Council. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm Colin McNabb. I'm the Calgary Region Manager for MPE Engineering. And as Jesse said, CSMI retained MPE on behalf of a number of municipalities to complete an engineering assessment for a preferred regional stormwater management option. We were engaged in July of last year, and we're here tonight to present, I guess, the highlights and maybe more specific to the town of Strathmore themselves, and review some of the background, the study areas, some of the options that were entertained, and I believe you've been kept in a loop of what some of the work that we've been doing. So we'll just touch on the highlights. I understand we have you have a busy agenda this evening, so we will get through this and be happy to answer any questions. So I'd like to turn it over to David Seeliger, who's our stormwater management lead for MPE Calgary.
Thank you, Colin. And firstly, don't mind my Australian accent, so hopefully you can all understand. The presentation is really a bit of a mirror image of what was presented in March 7th to I think a number of councillors were there. So I wanted to sort of go through fairly quickly some of the slides, but I'll focus on primarily the Strathmore area. So looking at a bit of background, really we were involved in an engineering assessment of a number of screening options for CSMI partners. And really the key benefits to the partners were looking at certainty of cost and growth and look at timing of implementation for municipalities, and also looking at the long-term sustainability of the region from irrigation and agribusiness, which is the WID area that we all lie in. Looking at some assessment objectives, we firstly wanted to meet the ESRD and irrigation stormwater quality guidelines as they are relevant, and provide capacity for municipalities to grow. And really we want to support CSMI partners' individual and collective interests. We are in a shared geography within the WID and municipalities being in the same drainage area. The irrigation water from the Bow River is of fairly high quality as it comes out, and it actually degrades as it goes down the system, primarily through urban and rural runoff, and particularly phosphorus, but also other pollutants such as salinity, coliforms, TSS. So really, particularly the phosphorus sort of results in weed growth, which ends up plugging intakes, reducing canal capacity, and also increasing O&M costs for the irrigation infrastructure system. And the current ESRD guidelines for stormwater management for land development doesn't really meet the irrigation water quality, as it doesn't really address particularly phosphorus. So municipalities need a solution. How can we move forward to provide a solution? WID needs a solution. They don't want the water quality to further deteriorate. And so there's a shared geography and there is a shared solution that we all work together. This is an overview of the study area itself, but essentially I'll go straight into the Strathmore area. You have, there's really two divides between the west and the north catchments of Strathmore and the surrounding area, and then the south and east. So the north and west sort of drain towards Serviceberry Creek, and east and south drain towards Eagle Lake. And essentially east area is trapped by the A Canal, which is the blue line. So the red boundaries are the of individual catchment areas. And the areas that we identify there is the 85 hectares in the west, and north is the estimated 25-year growth development in these areas, and such as east and south, for the study, only for really the study purposes. So looking at the existing water quality in the canals, and really the different canals are close to or exceeding irrigation water quality limits set by the WID stormwater guidelines that were developed a number of years ago. So therefore, to let stormwater to enter the canals like may have been done more traditionally, if we do permit that as an alternative, we really need to improve stormwater to a higher level to not continue to degrade the water quality. This is just showing existing conditions of dry weather conditions of the observed water quality versus the limit that was set. And really, I say during wet weather periods, that's when the water quality really does exceed a lot more than normally dry weather. So likewise, B Canal, even under dry conditions, it is exceeded the limit at the moment. So there's obviously more issues on B Canal than A Canal for a number of reasons. So in exploring the stormwater management alternatives, we really looked at, how can stormwater be conveyed and where can it be conveyed to? What is the stormwater quality criteria that needs to be met for the receiving stream? So where is it ending up going? Is it going into the canal, or is it going into a water body or a stream such as Seversbury Creek? So what is the limits from a water quality and volume perspective? And what should we do within land development areas? How can we treat the stormwater to really minimise those impacts? And also considering other opportunities. Are there other opportunities outside of the land development areas where we can get multiple benefits, such as in constructing wetlands to improve water quality, reduce volumes, and also maybe treat some rural areas as well? And there's maybe other ones that I'll talk about. So looking at, we had a couple of main alternatives. One was an in-canal alternative, and that was really looking at permitting stormwater to drain into the irrigation canal on a continuous basis. So we didn't have to hold the water there, but we could allow it to drain as runoff occurs. So we really needed to meet water quality, and it meant less infrastructure required because it would enter, the canals are very close to Strathmore, so you wouldn't need to sort of invest as much upfront capital. The out of canal was looking more at, well, how can we convey the stormwater independent to the canals? That would involve more ditches and open channels and some pipes and under drains. And looking at, what we were also looking at for the outer canal, can we utilise existing WIA right-of-ways, infrastructure, and existing systems that exist? There may be other opportunities, such as in some parts of the CSMI region, looking at providing the canals as a surcharge capacity in severe events. And I guess for Strathmore, more is looking at, Eagle Lake is a sort of a key issue. How do we manage water quality and flows to Eagle Lake and volumes, and can we actually offset those volumes? Another aspect of this whole collective sort of solution is, maybe encouraging rural best management practices, so we can also hopefully offset or improve the water quality in the general region. So this is just a schematic of sort of the overall sort of solution, picking up different points. So like within development areas itself, on the top left-hand corner, we have low impact development, which I'll talk about a little bit more. Wet ponds and wetlands, which is something that is being used, particularly wet ponds, a lot in last 15, 20 years. Then we also looked at the conveyance network within the land development areas. But I guess our real focus is really on the other side is the conveyance system beyond the land development areas. Looking at opportunities such as what is the alignment, is there opportunities for wetlands and other treatment facilities, rural BMPs. And this receiving stream on the right-hand side is really, it could be the irrigation canal, it could be a water body or Seversbury Creek, Eagle Lake, as really the criteria we're talking about. So looking at the receiving stream considerations for in-canal, it's really the water quality guidelines. We don't want to exceed existing water quality, and really, in some cases, we may even want to improve it in the overall collective solution we're talking about here. So for the out of canal conveyance, is really looking at the receiving streams being Seversbury Creek and Eagle Lake outlet, and also the water body itself, the Eagle Lake and you know, obviously there's issues with Eagle Lake in blue-green algae during the summer months. So is there things that we can do to actually improve the water quality? So it's really about volume controls and water quality controls for within development and beyond development. So really in the receiving environment, we also want to manage the impacts of downstream users and stakeholders, or even people who have rights such as the seeker. And looking at the land development treatment options, we're looking at the term called source controls or low impact development practices, which is really a way to reduce volume and improve water quality in a local scale within a land development. So it's something that's fairly new to Alberta, but it has been applied quite extensively overseas and in North America itself. It has a whole range of different tools that can be used, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with any of them, but you know, there's rain gardens, green roofs, suspended pavements, rainwater harvesting, absorbent landscapes, and you know, there's more traditional oil and grit separators. So there's, you know, and then there's the end-of-pipe systems, which is looking at wet ponds, wetlands, and stormwater reuse. And in some cases, there's oversized storages to allow off-season release. This is just a few pictures of different practices. So the top right is absorbent landscapes, which is really thickened topsoil, which acts like a sponge. You have rain gardens and bioretention, you know, rainwater recycling, such as toilet flushing, rain barrels, irrigation, and then there's permeable pavements and other green roofs. So all these things really like to reduce volumes and treat stormwater. So we're also looking at promoting rural best management practices. There's other opportunities such as rebuilding under drains, redirecting rural or urban areas, maybe even looking at piping irrigation systems to reduce volumes from irrigation return flows. You know, creation of wetlands, which may, you know, reduce volume and may act as wetland compensation, you know, may qualify as compensation to offset losses in urban development, for example. And then you may be familiar with the Bow River Phosphorus Management Plan, so maybe there's some offsets there, some benefits that could be counted towards that plan. And looking at optimising the performance of these practices in the Alberta context, seeing they are new and emerging. So I sort of mentioned that there were two prime alternatives that we looked at. One was the in-canal and the out-of-canal alternatives. So the in-canal was really looking at having a high level of treatment within the land development areas, and we did a lot of modelling to look at its performance and its potential. Then the out-of-canal was looking at still managing volume and water quality, but was looking more at what other opportunities are there, downstream measures, and what are the receiving stream discharge requirements. This is a concept of this is a schematic of the options that we looked at, and I'll focus primarily on the east system, which is system 2 and 3, which is around Strathmore. So if we look at this a little bit closer, we talked about Strathmore North and West. They would generally discharge to Serviceberry Creek. Because B Canal, which is the one, the blue canal there, is really poor in water quality, we looked at keeping an out-of-canal solution going directly to Serviceberry Creek because, you know, there was quite some substantial issues with B Canal. For Strathmore East, which drained towards A Canal now, we looked at either an underdrain that would then drain it to Eagle Lake, or go directly into A Canal, which did have some capacity. And then Strathmore South naturally drains to Eagle Lake, so we're looking at opportunities there, such as within land development and also wetland construction further downstream, or in wherever the most suitable places are. So looking at the alternative one, the in-canal, generally the upfront costs were lower for the municipality. But we can see that because you needed more practices, more controls on water quality, there was more future life cycle costs, more operation maintenance costs required. There was also a higher risk because if they didn't work as effectively as we would may expect, or because they're new here and emerging, that there is a risk that it doesn't meet the standard that we want, particularly in initial stages, and that may actually delay development as well because of that uncertainty. For the out-of-canal solution, there is a higher upfront dollar cost, but generally there's a lower life cycle cost into the future. There's more certainty about the solution, and there is an immediate solution generally, which can be readily staged. And the overall analysis did indicate that that the out-of-canal solution was more favoured in triple bottom line analysis. So there are numerous strategies that we explored, and options available, but really there was only a few that were really effective. But essentially, we still needed to reduce nutrient loading using BMPs in urban and rural areas. So we always got to improve water quality wherever it's going to, even if it's going to a natural system. And as I mentioned, the out-of-canal has the lowest risk from the irrigation perspective. It was also the highest ranked from the value analysis. But we still needed to meet the receiving streams water quality requirements, but they wouldn't be as stringent as the irrigation water quality guidelines that were being set by the WID. So this is the preferred solution for the out-of-canal, which is the preferred solution that we presented. So I'll go around starting from the west Strathmore area. Essentially, we're looking at using the sort of light blue line going towards Seversbury Creek is a WID right-of-way. So we're looking at using that and then building an underdrain and B canal. Likewise, the north system, part of System 2, the north area, goes also through a WID right-of-way, and then that would also involve building a couple of underdrains to get it to Seversbury Creek. For East Strathmore, the recommendation, because of the issues with in-canal solutions, we really were stuck with the out-of-canal, and it would actually connect, the East Strathmore would connect into the existing ditch system to Eagle Lake. And the southern system, there is an existing system there. It's really a matter of managing the volume and setting the right requirements for development, and obviously getting the appropriate approvals, through Eagle Lake and dealing with those issues. So just looking at this slide here, really, we've shown that before, but when we're looking at the costing I'll present in the next slide, it was really about the cost of infrastructure on the right-hand side of that yellow line. So it was the conveyance system, the wetlands, allocation for rural BMPs. So that was the cost that we provided. So with this one, I'll just looking at System 1 very quickly, which is the west system, which involves the areas wheatland and west. Their total cost was $93 million for 7,000 hectares of development over 25 years. For the Strathmore area, there was the Strathmore West and North was in the order of $2.2 million for a projected 170 hectares of development. Strathmore South and East was around $2.9 million for 360 hectares. I mean, these are really just estimates of land development based on our studies. So really what will happen in reality, and the timing of this development is going to be really quite different to what our numbers present, but it was the basis of our study. So in total of 5.5 million for the 600 hectares over a 25-year period of time, that ended up being roughly about $9,000 a hectare on just a pure gross development area, which was generally lower than the average of about 13,000 for the whole of the study area. So looking at the implementation steps, there's two phases. One is the implementation planning work that's needed to really, this is considered quite a high level study, really screening options and coming up with what is the preferred direction. There's a whole lot of sort of steps to work through, really refining some of these, some of the work. And stage 2 is really the construction staging and how that would work. So this is just an overview. I don't want to really touch on this, but really there's two processes, two types of, there's process type studies and requirements, and then there's a technical, more engineering based assessments. So really some of the key priority planning tasks needed is the water balance analysis and that's really looking at the impacts on particularly Eagle Lake, and what requirements do we need to require development to do, how much wetland and pre-treatment for Eagle Lake itself, and look at the outfall in more detail. So looking at what are the key components, and same with Salisbury Creek, looking at it's really probably more about volume control to minimise erosion in the creek system. So what would the annual discharge, and what does that look like above pre-development discharges to the Salisbury? Then we look at obviously developing a more higher level detail of design and costing, of looking at in greater detail. This has really been a desktop exercise, so getting in the ground and actually selecting alignments and making sure, in Strathmore's case, what is the capacity of the Eagle Lake ditch, and say, well, what will it take until it needs to be upgraded, so we can build that into our timing. And likewise with the other WID right-of-way conveyances. Also, governance is a critical one, and consultation with regulatory authorities will be important for a lot of our sort of recommendations. Also see that stormwater guideline development, so looking at actually setting some sort of basic standards for how development should proceed and how they should go about doing their designs. And there's also the advantage of some monitoring as well to better understand the system. So looking from a staging perspective, really, because when we're starting off development, and like I said before, the west areas and the north areas and everything won't necessarily happen all at once and at the same time. So we look at those costs, they were averaged out, assuming the total costs. But really, stage one is looking about providing an underdrain under the canals. So whether it's in the west, it's under B Canal, under the north, it's under North Branch A, and B Canal, and also the east Strathmore under the A Canal. So that's really the first bit that really allows the whole system to pretty much operate without much more work. So once you've got that, you can actually redirect the water away from the canals and reduce that impact. There may be some minor tweaking here and there to avoid, just to make sure there isn't some landowners that are adversely affected. But really, we're talking about a very small discharge in the 100-year event. We're talking about 60 litres a second per hectare. So I mean, I'm not, sorry, 60 litres a second in total flow rate. So I haven't got that in whatever units, imperial units, but it's quite a small flow rate, for a fairly rare event. So then there'll be certain upgrades of the conveyance systems and enlargement, ultimately, of the Eagle Lake ditch at some point in time, and there'll be some need for some wetlands, whether they're built down near Eagle Lake to capture some of the rural runoff, or they could be moved up into within the land development areas, because I believe town has some land holdings there too, so that could be used. So looking at this stage one, as I mentioned, stage one is for all these areas happening. It's a total cost for 4 under drains, and that's estimated about $1.7 million. And it was just like we sort of back calculated what is the average cost per hectare to develop this. It would require about a quarter of the land development over that 25 years to fund that, purely if you used it as a straight calculation. There's 3 stages, as mentioned, $5.5 million, and around 600 hectares served. So some of the recommendations of the report looked at recommending the out-of-canal solution being the preferred solution. We suggested to proceed with the stage 1 implementation phasing. So I mean, really, to really sort of fine-tune some of these the unknowns that have been sort of identified in the study. Land development will need current best management practices, implementation of low impact development practices, and those sort of components to really offset impacts. Looking at some water quality monitoring. Obviously the consultation with the SRD and other, the regulators, and really, I guess the number 6 there is really support of the partners, and whether that's councils and boards, and that maybe that's probably a higher priority. So do we move forward with these further planning studies. And then there's a whole thing about cost share and seeking consensus to be equitable cost sharing between the different regions and how that would work. Because obviously it's important in Strathmore that it's equitable, particularly considering your costs and how that would, and how can you fund the infrastructure. So, okay.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Fuel?
Question through the chair to Dr. Stanford. If we're looking, I think you mentioned that stage 1 would be 1.2 million?
1.7, I think, yes.
1.7. My question is this done through offsite levies? Like where are we coming up with the money? Is that as we develop, it's a tacked on, or?
Okay, for example, to me it looks like it's about, depending on density, probably $800 per lot on the single family home. So if it's $800, it could be paid. It'd be paid by the developer.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Peterson?
I just want to make sure I understood when you talked about potential for 25% of land development costs being dedicated to stormwater. Am I?
Oh, sorry, no, I was indicating that if you looked at the under drains, the stage 1, I think
Yep.
that's referring to,
Yeah.
that was about 25% of the total cost of the implementation.
Yeah.
So that wasn't related to land being dedicated to stormwater
Right.
management.
Okay.
So it's purely on. You'll take 20. Yeah.
You mentioned in the presentation too, just briefly, you talked about the triple bottom line.
Yes.
I'd be really interested to hear about the philanthropic process in that. Maybe not tonight, but another time.
Sure.
I'd be interested in hearing about that.
No, that was a very interesting process. Yes.
And the other thing that I would like to ask you, and if you can't answer it, I'm okay with that. But at one point I was a river dweller, and I always remember people saying if you live along the river, you're very conscientious about water use and about regard. And the farther away you live from the river, the more it becomes about aesthetics. And I wonder if you have a comment about public accountability versus public acceptability in terms of paying for future stormwater management. Do you have any idea of that? I guess the question I'm asking is, does that enter into the types of work that you do in the studies that you carry out?
Public accountability versus.
As a politician, my question is, what do you think the level of awareness is of our public, and what will be their potential to accept the fact that into the future they're going to pay more and more for stormwater management?
I guess that's being demonstrated now by the City of Calgary.
That's my question. But they live in the river. They're river dwellers.
That's right. But I guess a lot of that work is related to water quality to a point, but it's also about all the drainage infrastructure inadequacies of the system and what they're looking at doing. So it's not necessarily the river, but it may actually be their backyard, their street that floods that they want fixed. So I think people are familiar with, obviously, with the current flavour is flood management and flood protection. But I think the issues about water quality and are a lot less obvious to them, obviously to the general public. So I think and I think flooding affects them more directly, whether it's other people that they know or whether it's their local street that floods or their sewer backups or systems that occur within their local area. So, but I think the city and others as well, not only them, but other municipalities really need to lead. And I guess they tend to lead even the province in where they want to go with respect to water management. So there are many municipalities that actually break that ground rather than the provincial regulator, for example.
Who's a good role model?
Who's a good role model? If you're looking at a more local area, I'd say town of Coaldale.
Thank you.
As an example.
Thank you.
Councillor Wills?
Your worship, to Mr.
Seeliger.
Sorry. Just I'd like to hear more about your stormwater use with regards to irrigation. So are you suggesting that we could actually use that water to irrigate? And if you are, do we have to take steps to clean it?
It depends on where the use is. If it's in a controlled environment, so I mean, a classic is a golf course where you can actually, you typically irrigate, say, in the early morning, so it's less likely to be public access during that time. So depending on the location is the level of cleanliness and the use. So it comes down to risk and exposure of risk. So in Australia, where I come from, we're very high on irrigation and many other uses for stormwater reuse. So it does need to be clean, but it's, I mean, up to a certain level.
Your worship, if I may, with a subsequent question, what would the initial cost then be of setting up a system that would be able to clean that water to run that irrigation system?
Typically, and it, like I said, comes down to the location and what you require. And the provincial regulations are haven't really been developed yet for stormwater reuse. But typically, it's in Australia, it's used as wetlands is adequate enough to treat the water and to actually reuse it straight off without doing any chlorination or anything like that. So typically, if you're going to look at some, so it depends on what the actual end up water quality needs to be. So you might have enough, and the City of Calgary has enough examples where they actually just use it, and same with Coldale, they don't do any extra treatment, it just is irrigated from where it is. But it's just a matter of having the right controls in place and having the municipality still needs to take responsibility for any risk. And the province permits that if they are prepared to take the appropriate steps. And maybe do water quality sampling and those sort of things.
Thank you. First of all, thank you. I enjoyed this presentation as much as I did the first time. I know, though, that by being at that first presentation, that this is a real regional issue, really regional effort. And I guess I'm not sure if this question would go to their CAO or to Jesse, but is there a chance, considering that it's a regional effort, that some provincial funding would be available for this effort?
To date, we have received the regional collaboration grant funding. I guess it then just depends on what the groups that are committed to the next steps and continuing this initiative. We've also made application to the RBC Blue Water Initiative as well.
Right.
What we've heard yet as far as that goes.
Well, Dan said he thought we got it.
Pretty confident that it was.
Yeah, I think it did come in.
So this initiative has been very well received. From
that's where I was going with this. Yeah.
To continue what we've done to date, I think, opens other doors as well from the implementation and construction phase as well, I think.
Thank you.
No questions?
Yeah, one more, Your Worship.
Go ahead.
I'm not sure if it's Dr. Stanford or Jesse, but hearing what I'm hearing about the using the stormwater, could our current system, irrigating for residents and parks and so forth, with a bit of cleaning, could that be a system that we could be using some stormwater to fulfill?
Our current irrigation system? There'd be some risk associated with that. That we would have to, I think, do more of a risk evaluation to determine what our acceptable level of risk would be with converting our existing system to a stormwater-based system. Drawing directly from the canal quality is better than what a stormwater pond would be. It's just, would we be acceptable of that, or acceptive of that risk? And what would be our desired water quality to be able to build and use that system?
Okay.
And be able to demonstrate that it would be sustainable at that level, because you can be able to turn those taps on any time, and that's always been a risk with our existing irrigation system, is, you know, we've had to put notices out when people sign up for the system, and you know, that you don't drink the water and monitor your kids and all that kind of stuff. It's not intended for any use other than irrigation, really. So I think it's a risk assessment and then a properly designed system.
And education and with the community as well. And you know, we've got examples in Australia where the whole suburbs have got a third pipe system. It's a purple pipe system, as they call it, and all those have taps outside that are taking the water. I mean, it is chlorinated a little bit because it is wastewater and stormwater, but you know, it is a system that, you know, that there's examples around there that have used recycled water.
Dr. Stanford?
Several years ago, we started collecting $500 per lot, and it's gradually moved up a little. But also on commercial and industrial, we were charging $2,000 per acre. So now, with it creeping up here, even at $800 in comparison, it's really a good deal in my mind. So I'm happy with the proposal.
I'd like to try and understand a few things, if you don't mind. Doing the out-of-canal system that you're talking about here, do we need, when we do a residential area, when a residential area is built, do we then need to forego the need for a stormwater pond?
You'll still need stormwater ponds and storage. So really what you need to do is control. You still need to do low impact development and typically a wet pond or some other wetland measure that actually also controls the 100-year event down to a smaller rate to sort of minimize impacts. And also these measures and stormwater reuse is an important part of reducing the volume of water discharging to the receiving environment. And particularly I think Eagle Lake would be the one that would be the most sensitive, you might say, to, you know, there's going to be a whole lot of consultation needed there to make sure that things are appropriately followed through with to you know, get agreement with right holders.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe we likely have the right-of-way to Eagle Lake, and it should be no problem there.
That's right.
That's right.
Now, to Serviceberry Creek, we would have to go under the WID canals to get it there. And then, what kind of contracts do we have to have in place to get it to Serviceberry Creek? And then what's our concern once it's to Serviceberry Creek? Do we have to upgrade the water quality somehow?
That's really there would be some requirement. Obviously, it would depend on, you know, where you put your emphasis. Is there opportunities downstream outside of the development area, so you save on how much you have to do within development? So we talked about building wetlands to manage water quality and particularly volume. But you know, there's also lots of things we can do within land development areas as well. So it's a matter of looking at that balance and what's the best way of managing each system based on their current physical constraints.
So there may be a possibility we have to have some agreements in place in regards to these ponds or these right-of-ways?
The WID have, as part of the regional collaborative initiative, have indicated their contribution to the group is one of right-of-way and current land holdings that they have. So there's a significant floodplain to the north en route to Serviceberry Creek that we've had some preliminary conversations with the general manager for the WID to discuss the opportunity to have some stormwater management ponds there, wetlands, treatment wetlands in that area. There's also existing wetlands that are actually fed today through that ditch that we could also leverage. So, but it is an existing right-of-way. It is an existing ditch that's owned and or statutorily controlled by the WID. So, so it's not that we would have to go buy land or right-of-ways for the drainage itself from the initial conversations that we've had and the commitment from the WID at this point.
And do we have any concerns down the road, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, 50 years, in regards to our agreements going out the door? In regards to this is the system we've set up, and all of a sudden they change their mind?
Well, I think that's where the strength of an agreement comes into play. This is also an initiative that's being closely watched and observed by Alberta Environment. Environment have been at the table, and Environment consider this area a dual approval area, where it's an environment approval as well as a WID approval for stormwater release and management outside of the town boundary specifically. So I would suggest that it would have some fairly major implications in the event that there was a change of heart, and we don't want to use those right of ways, and the implications for drainages that have already been directed down that way would be very significant to try and reroute and take otherwise. So I'd suggest that, yeah, there's definitely got to be some commitments that will be made through agreements and things along those lines with the WID and with Alberta Environment and other groups of stakeholders and partners to commit to this as a regional collaborative effort.
Okay, good. Any further questions? No? I don't think we need a motion on this, do we?
I think we need a resolution, Your Worship, and I would move that it be resolved that we, the town of Strathmore, support the findings and recommendations of the engineering assessment of preferred stormwater management options based on information known to date, and therefore authorize our organization to participate in the next steps of the cooperative stormwater management initiative implementation planning phase. Wow.
I didn't write it.
Very well put. The motion's on the floor. Are there any questions or any? Is there any debate? Seeing none, all in favor? And carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
very much.
Great report. I appreciate it.
So, Strathmore
Your Worship,
Library. I'm sorry.
Right after the Strathmore Library Board appointment, I'd like to jump to the one pertaining to the garbage contract.
Sure. 8.4 Strathmore Library Board appointments.
I would move that council appoint Mr. Chris Dumont and Mr. Robert Antonis to the Strathmore Library Board for a term of 1 year.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? And carried.
With thanks.
With thanks.
Poor Rachel.
Yeah, poor Rachel.
She had to sit here all the time.
Our next item is, what's the item number on that one? 8.10. Please. It is page 113.
Thank you.
Evening, Your Worship,
Good
Council. The Town of Strathmore is currently entered into a contract with H&H Huckstead Enterprises Limited for solid waste collection. And within the contract, there is a provision to extend the agreement for another 1 to 2 years, and that's under clause 3.2. H&H Huckstead is requesting a two-year renewal to the contract with a few amendments to bring the contract current. So I'd just like to go over the proposed amendments to the contract. On page 1 of 16, we're proposing that you remove, under paragraph 4, you remove the reference to recycling, as this is under separate contract. On page 3, under clause 3.3, we are adding in the extension date, which would make the contract renewed until December 31st of 2016. Under clauses 4.24, 4.25, 4.44, and 4.45, we are adding in the additional dates of 2015 and 2016, and we are inflating the residential rate by 3% per year and previously it had been inflated by 4%, and Mr. Huckstead has agreed that he would just like to be close to the cost of living increase. Under clause 6.1, we are proposing that we remove this clause in its entirety, as this clause was waived in the previous agreement. Clause 7.1 is amended to include additional sanctioned landfills based on merit, and I'll read that clause to you. The town and the contractor agree to consider any sanctioned landfill that the town and the contractor agree upon based on the merits of the landfill, such as cost savings to the town. Okay, and those are all the amendments to the body of the contract. Then under Schedule A, we are proposing to remove Clause 3 in its entirety. It is no longer applicable as the recycle program is a separate contract. We are proposing to add under Clause 4B a provision to donate an additional day for HIG to pick up Christmas trees. Currently, Huckstead's has 5 days or a year of heavy item garbage pickup, and he is willing to donate 1 additional day at no charge to pick up Christmas trees for a total of 6 days. Then on page 14, we have updated the unit rates for collection to reflect the residential dwelling unit numbers, and then again as well as the residential rates which have been inflated by 3% for 2015 and 2016. And we are proposing to remove clauses 4 and 5, as again these relate to the recycle yard contract. Schedule B, which is page 15, we are proposing to add in Three Hills landfill as a sanctioned landfill site. And finally, on Schedule C, we are again adding Three Hills to the rates. We are adding a clause that states that Huckstead's will charge a maximum additional $27 per ton for trucking outside of the City of Calgary, where the costs will result in a savings to the town of at least $5 per ton through trucking to a site outside the City of Calgary. And then the 2 sentences below that, we are removing those as well because they relate to the recycle yard contract. And the recommendation is that Council approve the amendments and 2-year renewal to the solid waste agreement between the Town of Strathmore and H&H Huckstead Enterprises Limited, and that the CAO be authorized to sign the agreement on behalf of the town.
So moved.
Do we have any questions? We have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion? No discussion? The discussion that I have basically there were some questions in here. And what happens at the renewal at the end of the term in 2016?
The contract would need to go for tender.
Goes to tender,
yes.
Right? The other question that I have is in regards to the agreement with Drumheller. What will happen with this contract if the town enters into an agreement with Drumheller Landfill in regards to the contract must be between the town and the landfill as opposed with H.H. Huckstead? What happens there?
And H&H Huckstead have an agreement currently with the Drumheller landfill that expires at the end of December of this year. So at that point, we would need to start discussions with the Drumheller landfill to enter into a contract with the town, and we would end up paying the tippage costs directly rather than paying H&H Huckstead, who would then pay Drumheller.
And seeing as the motion's on the floor, I guess we can enter into this debate at that. The only concern that I have is in regards to the removal of the bond of indemnity to the town, the performance surety bond, and that causes me some concern with it being removed. I understand it was removed in the past, and I understand and I have great confidence in regards to Mr. Huckstead and H.H. Huckstead Ltd. They're a very reputable company, and they have served this community well. But with that in mind, my thoughts are, should something happen to the principal of H.H. Huckstead, or some sort of disaster befall the company that we can't even conceive of, where does that put the town in regards to our situation? And that causes me some concern if the performance surety is not there.
Okay, there are a couple of clauses in the agreement already, and that were in it previously as well, and that's under performance failure, where it states that if the contractor fails to perform any of the obligations or agreements of the contract, all expenses and expenditures made by or on behalf of the town under this section would have to be paid by the contractor within 30 days.
A limited contractor is a limited company. Okay. Alrighty, the motion is on the floor. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Our next item is policy 8.6. Is that correct?
Sorry, no, Your Worship. It's Town of Strathmore Communications.
Communications plan. I'm sorry, I missed that one. 8.5.
Your Worship, at the Council Spring Workshop, Council asked administration to bring back information regarding the development of a community communication plan. Administration has done a little bit of research on other communities and how they've developed these plans. And for the most part, what we found is that communities typically hire consultants to create the plans for them. The creation of the plans usually involve some kind of public consultation, whether it be citizen surveys, community hall meetings, things like that. The plans also involve a lot of research on best practices and strategic development, and then they do set goals for the community for external communications, but also internal communications. But we've also noticed that a lot of communities have a dedicated position for communications. We've spoken with the city or town of Chestermere, and they've just created a communications coordinator for the town, and they are actually in the process right now of creating their own communications plan. They've hired a consultant out of Calgary, and they're just in the early stages. We've also included in this report some of the things that we already do as far as communications, and we just wanted to list them here so that council is aware of what we actually do. So we have the town website, which is actually, it's out for tender right now, and it closes at the end of May, I believe. So we should be getting some proposals back for a new website. We do the weekly town ad page in the Strathmore Times. We send out the utility insert in monthly utility bills. We have a Strathmore Facebook page, a Strathmore Twitter account. We have citizen communication forms, which are now available online. We have the community events sign just out on the number 1 highway. FCSS attends interagency as well as health interagency to report on what kind of programs the town is holding. We have council open houses. We've done a Christmas open house in the past, and we are now having a spring open house coming up here in June. And also planning and development holds numerous open houses for their planning documents and bylaws, and also developers are required to hold open houses when it comes to different projects and developments. One suggestion that administration is giving to council is to perhaps hold quarterly open houses for the public, where different departments within the town can report on the developments within and highlights within each department, including projects and upcoming projects. So we've really just brought this forward for council to discuss tonight and to give us some kind of direction or suggestions on where they would like us to go with this. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Questions?
Because we have a lot on our agenda tonight, Your Worship, I would recommend that we table this for future discussion.
Just accept it as information?
Accept it as information.
Okay. Do we need a motion on that to accept it as information?
I would move to
Okay.
accept it as information.
You've got a motion on
And
the floor
thank
to
you.
accept as information. Any discussion? None? All in favor? Carried. 8.6 is our next item. Council remuneration and expense policy.
Good evening again.
Good evening.
Okay, so our council remuneration policy has not been amended since 2011. And one of the items that we are looking at, or actually the only item that we're looking at, is including a per diem, but only for certain events rather than all meetings, etc. And we're looking at a maximum of 4 days to attend FCM and or AUMA, and a maximum of 4 days to attend spring and fall workshops for counselors. And this is basically to reimburse counselors who are out of money through their normal jobs where they have to miss a day and miss that pay. And I guess just to make it more affordable, and to encourage counselors to attend these very critical, important meetings and conferences.
Do we have any questions? Councillor Fuel?
Yes, Your Worship. Mine is not a question, but a comment. I am in favor of these per diems that are limited because for myself, as you were saying, Linda, for myself and others who work, it makes it very difficult to go to the AUMA conferences if we do have to miss work. And so this isn't like any kind of a perk. It essentially allows some of us to attend without being penalized financially or time-wise and not being able to do it. So this allows us the chance to go to AUMA. And the other thing it does is the spring and fall workshops are often quite onerous and long, and they're pretty difficult. They're long days, and we've decided in the previous council to stay in town and not go out of town. So I think this helps us a great deal as well. So I'm in favor of this.
Are there any questions?
And once again, I support this too. You know, the alternative to that some councils use in this province is to have daytime meetings. That, of course, precludes a lot of people who have daytime jobs of joining council, and I hope we never go down that road. But I've never thought it fair to actually have a councillor lose money, actually have it cost him or her money to go to a meeting. And these are not meetings that a council should be missing. These are crucial meetings. AUMA and workshops are just meetings that every councillor should be at. That's basically keeps us going for the rest of the year, and they're very informative, and they are an education. So I just think it's important that council have an opportunity to to at least not lose money on these important meetings.
Why don't we put a motion on the floor and then we can debate it, unless you have a question, Councillor Williams.
I actually
I do. A question, please.
Your Worship, to Dr. Stanford, what type of budgetary factors is going to have in our current budget to council new remuneration?
Your Worship, I hadn't calculated.
Doesn't affect the budget. We have our own.
Pardon me?
We have our own.
But Your Worship, we could calculate easily.
Okay. Somebody want to put a motion on the floor then?
Yes, Your Worship. I would move that council approve the recommended action as presented.
Okay.
Regarding policy number 1806, I guess that would be the addition.
Your Worship, can I just make a few more comments?
Please.
So if every councillor attended 4 days of the conferences and the 4 spring and fall workshops, that would end up being a total of $1,600 per councillor.
Per year.
Per year, yes.
But sorry, Your Worship, I would like to just add that we have a rider as far as the FCM, that we don't send very many people to that conference anymore. So that would bring that down as well, because I think we were just sending the mayor and or one councillor, whereas in the past it was everyone.
The motion's on the floor. You go ahead. Councillor Peterson.
Following up on what Councillor Field spoke about earlier in terms of opening up opportunity for other people to run for council that won't otherwise be stymied by the existing limitations. The other thing that this allows is that most of our workshops take place on weekends, and there are those of us who don't lose money and have no requirement then to file for that, and I think that's an important consideration too. There are people here who lose a great deal of money because they're on weekends, and so this is an effort to mitigate that circumstance. But there are those of us who don't have to, and so I think that's something important to keep in mind.
We did a survey of 16 municipalities, and out of those 16, 13 do pay per diems.
Your Worship, just a final comment, I guess, if I may. I do support this, but I'm kind of blindsided it came up so fast, to be quite frank. I was actually expecting this to come up at the budget workshop, so that therefore it would be put in effect for next year. So as a result of that, I am not voting in favor of this because it personally affects our budget.
Councillor Reffel?
Yeah, through the chair, to Linda, I believe council, that comes out of council's budget, which is set, and which is seldom ever, we haven't used the budget in our budget in the past, our individual budgets that we have for us. So this does not affect the town budget, because we are this is already budgeted for in our budget. So it has no impact on the town budget.
Correct.
I'll add my comments. I do not support the motion to increase council's salary, and implementing a per diem is a salary increase. The Municipal Government Act allows council to set its own remuneration, but I feel we should be consulting with citizens before we implement our increase. I would ask an independent body to review our remuneration and to have that body report to the citizens of Strathmore their recommendations in open council. This motion was not because of an independent committee coming forward with a recommendation for a per diem for Strathmore council members. Council received a comparison of salaries of 7 municipalities near Strathmore. The communities of Airdrie, Canmore, Cochrane, and Okotoks have full-time mayors. Brooks, Chestermere, High River, and Strathmore have part-time mayors. Councillors of all 7 communities are part-time. A salary comparison for the mayors of Brooks, population 13,676, Chestermere, population 15,762, and High River, population 12,975, all have a higher base salary than the mayor of Strathmore. Chestermere and Strathmore do not have a per diem, and as the mayor of the community with the lowest salary, some would say I am the person that should have the most to say regarding a salary increase, but I will not use this as a reason for my increase. When I put my name forward to run for mayor of Strathmore, I did it knowing I would not request any increase during my term of office. I will accept the recommendation of an independent committee and only vote in the affirmative to an increase, should that be the recommendation, and it must only become effective in 3.5 years after the next municipal election. Strathmore councillors are paid more than councillors for Brooks, Chestermere, and High River. Again, Chestermere does not have a per diem. Brooks and High River do have a per diem. And depending on the reasoning for the per diems to be authorized, councillors in Brooks and High River may earn more than Strathmore councillors. However, I do not have any information on how these communities authorize their per diems. All members of council's salary is 1/3 tax-free. This tax-free benefit increases the value of the salary significantly. The tax-free benefit is to be used to assist municipally elected officials attend to their duties where expenses may not be recoverable. Not taking into consideration of the tax-free benefit, I completed a very rough calculation regarding salary and the salary rate per hour. Using Strathmore councillor's salary and a 4-hour day, 5 days per week, the per hour rate is $27.25. Only the mayor is expected to work an average of 4 hours per day. It has been noted some members of council are reluctant to attend conferences and workshops because of the loss of salary from their full-time jobs. And I appreciate that concern. We all knew the requirements of the position before we were sworn in as members of council. We all accepted some type of personal restructuring of our lives when we accepted this responsibility. We must keep in mind members of councils are paid every month to carry out our duties, which includes attending conferences and training. Councillors should attend training workshops and conferences to improve their knowledge on governance and to keep current on changes in procedures and the laws. The citizens of the town of Strathmore benefit when members of councils attend conferences and workshops. Members of council have an expense account. Should there be a need to cover expenses so a council member can attend a conference or a workshop, there is an expense account which may be considered. It is my recommendation a committee review our remuneration. As part of a remuneration review by a committee, I would encourage consideration of a salary clawback when a councillor fails to attend committee meetings or council meetings without a valid reason and have an authorized absence. I ask members of council to vote down this motion. Further discussion, please. And have you spoken on the motion already, Councillor Fuel? Because what I'm worried about is when you speak on it twice, that's supposed to end it. And
oh, I guess I have spoken when I made my motion.
According to Boucher's, that's not exactly correct here.
No, I think is that in our policy? I will forgive that policy at this point because I think this is very important and I'm willing to allow all members to have their say. I think it's of the utmost importance. So, Councillor Fuel?
Well, first of all, Your Worship, I would hate to see us go down the road where we're penalized for not being able to attend the AUMA, especially in my situation as a teacher, and I'm still trying to get clarification of this, because if I go to AUMA, it's not just a matter of having to pay the substitute teacher, and again, I'm getting clarification on this, so I'm not 100% sure of this, but I may also lose a day of pensionable salary.
I can speak with authority, Councillor Freely. You definitely will. And you
So-
will lose pensionable service as
So
well.
then that becomes incredibly financially punitive to me because it will be an ongoing pay loss that I will experience over years because I've lost those days of pensionable service that would then have to be paid back by me in order to receive the full pension that I would want. So then saying that I have to go to an AUMA conference would penalize me financially. Now, as far as this being a pay raise, it could be also seen as a question of semantics, because if we have a budget that's already approved for us, maybe it's a matter of diverting some of our budget money that's given to us each for these kinds of things, so that we can attend these conferences. So that's all I have to say.
Further discussion? Did you have something?
Yes, Your Worship, I do. I think that one of the things that I would say in relation to your comments, and I certainly oppose any movement for any council to vote in their own increases. This is not the case in this. I think Councillor Rempel has adequately pointed out, it's been confirmed by our Deputy CAO, that there is a budget and there is a limit on what councillors can spend, and that has been approved in budget for which you voted, as did I, and so it is already there. So I don't think that this can in any way be conceived as something over and above what already exists. And in terms of councillors should or should not attend councillors or workshops, I think our public will be in the best position to determine how well we serve that public. And in terms of attending conferences, there are many ways to get an education. And one of the things that the AUMA has done is to provide webinars, and they provide a huge array of option for learning that any councillor can take advantage of. And I can speak from personal experience that I've taken advantage of those, and I find them incredibly helpful. Our own Marigold Library is one of the greatest options in terms of being able to access resources online that go far beyond things that are even offered at AUMA or at our FCM conferences, and those are available for all councils. I don't think that including options, including a salary clawback for councillors who now need a doctor's note to not attend a town policy meeting. I think when I look at the dedication that I see around this table from the councillors that exist here, it's extraordinary as it is. And Councillor Walls and I share positions on council or on committees, as do Councillor Blockland and myself. And I don't think that that's ever been a problem. It's not ever going to be a problem. And it's insulting to this council and this community to think that it is. And I think that that's why we have democratic elections. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Motion's on the floor. All in favor? I just want to make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 in favor. Those opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is the Marigold Library levy rate, 8.7. Corporate services.
Worship, I move the council authorize the mayor authorize the mayor or a member of council to sign Schedule C in support of the revised levy.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Uh, 8.8 mandatory amendment to quality management plan.
Me again.
Good evening.
Good evening. Your Worship, this is a mandatory amendment to our quality management plan, and this is coming from the Safety Codes Council. And in the past, every 2 years, we would have a compulsory review of from the Safety Codes Council for building, plumbing, gas, electric, and fire permits, as we are an accredited municipality. So they are requesting that we add in a clause that we do internal reviews in between our compulsory 2-year reviews by the Safety Codes Council. So on page 81 in your agenda package, We are adding in the provision for an annual review on the table of contents page. On page 84, we are adding in the clause that states internal reviews will be carried out annually by the QMP manager or the manager's delegate to evaluate whether or not compliance with the QMP is being achieved. At the conclusion of the internal review, the QMP manager will provide the Safety Codes Council with a letter of QMP compliance under the signature of the QMP manager and the Chief Administrative Officer. The letter must be comprised of all findings of the review, including any successes, areas for improvement, and the methodology used to achieve improvement or correction as it relates to the approved quality management plan. On page 86, which is the Uniform Delivery Standards Table of Contents, we are adding in Appendix G, which is a list of administrative forms available on the Safety Codes Council website, a new Appendix H, which is the annual internal review forms, and a new Appendix I, which is the fire annual internal review forms. And then page 103 is the new Appendix G. Pages 104 to 106 is the new Appendix H, and pages 107 to 109 is the new Appendix I.
Any questions?
I just have one question, Your Worship, of Linda. The only question I have of this, it's mandatory, of course, but do you see any concerns that will be brought to your office as a result of this from community developers?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
We already do this.
Okay.
It's just now become mandatory.
Have a motion, please.
I move that, oh, sorry, Grant.
Go ahead, Brad.
Thank you. I move the council approve the amendments to the Town of Strathmore's Quality Management Plan as presented.
Any discussion? Seeing none? All in favor?
Thank you, Councilor
Carried.
Peterson.
Thank you, Worship.
Thank you. We've got 8.11, which is page 115. AUMA resolution.
Your Worship, the AUMA annual convention is coming up this fall in September. Every year at the convention, multiple resolutions are considered by different communities across Alberta. The deadline to submit any resolutions to AUMA for consideration at the convention is May 31st, and Mayor L has submitted a resolution for Council's consideration.
Yes, Councilor Peterson.
Under the recommendation, under the paragraph starting further be it resolved that, there are some grammatical errors, Your Worship. It should read on the second line, council prior to the municipal election, but not be put into effect instead of effective.
Yes. Thank you. The motion is there for your questions if you have any, or if you want to put a motion on the floor, then we can discuss.
Worship, I'm prepared to move that council submit the following resolution to the AUMA for consideration at the 2014 AUMA convention. Call for mandatory public involvement in council remuneration review committee.
Any discussion? Councilor Field.
Yes, Your Worship. I just have a question. As far as the committee that would come in to decide on compensation, would that be a binding decision they make? Like whatever they make as their recommendation is binding to the council coming up?
No. Are you talking where
you say you say that, well, the motion talks about this committee being struck, correct?
The recommendation by the committee be passed by council prior to. Any motion that comes to council is either approved or not approved by council.
Okay, that's all I needed, just a little clarification.
Councilor Peterson?
I have two questions, Your Worship. The first one, having read this proposed resolution. My first question is why we would need to bring this forward to the province for consideration. As I understand it from reading the background, that there are other municipalities who already do this in their communities, and they have capacity from their communities to do this themselves. So that would be my first question.
Okay.
Why we would want to bring this forward? Why would it be better to bring it to the province?
And to answer your question, I don't know if necessarily it would be better. This is just an option that I thought that I would put forward. And with the changes with the requests for changes to the Municipal Government Act, that was sort of the motivating factor for me to bring this forward at this time. This is an option that Council can put into their own policy manual if they wish.
And my second question relates to the provision for a committee, a public committee. And I guess I'm wondering how you envision that would happen. And I'll preface the question by giving my own concerns around this. I made a profound promise that I would not ever vote for my own raise in council. And when we appoint committees, it must be ethical, and it must also appear to be ethical. But there's all kinds of opportunities for that manipulation to happen. And so I guess that I would want to have some kind of reassurance as to how that would occur.
Quite honestly, Councillor Peterson, I don't think I can give you the reassurance that you want. I would suggest that the members of Council would come up with the best solution possible to strike the committee, and it be an unbiased committee to come back with the best recommendation that they can make. How that committee is going to be made up, I really don't feel that I'm qualified to say that you need this type of person or that type of person. I think it has to be a total involvement from Council as a whole.
In light of that, Your Worship, my inclination will be, or my position will be to vote against this resolution, because I do believe that our administration and our community can probably do a better job of deciding on council remuneration than the province can at this point.
Any further discussion? Councillor Field?
Yes, Your Worship. I guess I'm just wondering why we would feel it would be necessary for us to be the watchdog for other municipalities across the province by putting this resolution or this motion forward. As it said before, there are many other communities doing it, and I think their elected officials answer to their own electors. And so I'm not sure I understand or see the need in us trying to push this forward provincially.
Councillor Volkman.
Thank you, Your Worship. I am definitely speaking against this resolution. If you look at our history, we had a committee set up for this prior to the 2010 elections. They came in front of our elected council with their recommendations. They were flatly rejected. I'm sure they weren't impressed either as a committee that worked hard on coming up with these things. My point is, council is entrusted to make many dollar decisions over the course of the term, some in the millions of dollars, which we seem to do all the time. I honestly believe council, through debate and discussion and with administration's help, with comparing us to similar municipalities, we can come up with a true, honest dollar amount for remuneration, which most of the public probably won't like it anyway, if it's small or medium or whatever it is. I lost the second page of my notes somewhere, but I really believe I don't want to see us go down this way again. That previous committee we had, there were some former councillors on there too, and times change over time too. I mean, here we are going on 6 years later, and the town's getting busier. There's more things we have to deal with. I also do agree that we shouldn't be voting ourselves in a raise. I'm very up on that too. But having said that, if that's the case, then 3.5 years from now, we're going to be in the same boat we were back in 2011. We're going to be 5-6 years behind again. So it's a no-win situation here. But I definitely speaking against this resolution.
Any further discussion? No? Okay. All in favor?
Can you repeat the motion?
No. The motion is to move this AUMA resolution forward for approval at the next AUMA meeting. Yeah, all in favor? Opposed? Defeated. Thank you. Next one is that the
813.
812, or we had 813 for Wademsa?
Jennifer?
Sorry, yes, so we're on 812, and that is the gas tax fund / new
There we go. Thank
Building Canada fund.
Are you going to be speaking to that one, Jennifer? There you go.
Sure. Council's received a letter from MLA Jeff Wilson regarding the new Building Canada Fund and the federal gas tax fund. There's been an email, going around between the mayor, council, and administration in regards to the provincial government signing some contracts to do with these funds. And this is just here for council's discussion on those emails.
Okay. Open for questions? Do we want to have a motion that we... just write it. Oh, okay. We'll just wait a moment, and then we'll have a motion on the floor.
Your worship, I'll accept friendly amendments if somebody doesn't find this suitable. I would move that a letter be sent to the Minister of Infrastructure urging the provincial government to sign the new Building Canada Fund and the federal gas tax fund.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried.
Discussion on this?
Yeah,
He asked.
He asked, but I didn't. Did you want some discussion on it, Councilor?
Your worship, I just had a question.
By all means.
I didn't think you were going that fast. I don't know, maybe my question has to go to the CEO. Reading this, it's obviously driven by the Wild Rose. Is any feedback from the governing party on this?
No, I have not heard any, but I do think a letter should go to Wayne Drysdale, and he is the Minister of Infrastructure now, asking him with a copy to the Premier saying we need to get it signed so that we get our money. Otherwise, we're going to lose out.
We are going to lose.
Yeah, and that's
okay.
That's all the comments I wanted to make yourself. This is an opportunity we can't lose.
No, I realize that.
You can vote now.
Yeah. Yeah, all in favor? Carried.
I barely had time to get my hand up if I were in auction, Your Worship.
Our next item is 813 Wademsa, and who will be speaking towards or on that?
Do you want to speak to it?
I'd prefer if you would. I think I know what you're going to talk about. But
When Rocky and I, when Councillor Blockland and I attended the last Wademsa meeting, we were updated on the 25th celebrations that will be happening on June the 6th, celebrating 25 years of Wademsa. It's a sweet celebration in the sense that Wademsa has just undergone a very, very difficult battle, and they have done a fantastic job of maintaining their integrity and their service to the Strathmore and surrounding communities. And so in celebrating this 25 years, many of the adjoining municipalities are going to recognize WIDEMSA at that celebration on June the 6th. And Councillor Blockland and I wish to bring to this committee the desire of our town council, to hear the desire of our town council with regards to doing likewise. And I'd be happy to make a motion that we leave it up to administration to find an appropriate recognition for WIDEMSA's 25th anniversary on June the 6th of 2014 to be presented by our mayor if he can attend. Yes, Councillor Sullivan.
Okay.
I thought you wanted to amend my motion.
I think Councillor Fuel gets to speak first.
It's okay.
I think we're getting tired.
That is hard.
Councillor Fuel?
No, just my quick question to Councillor Peterson is, are you looking for as many councillors who can attend the celebration night, or are you also looking for that and a letter of congratulations to WIDEMSA?
I think what I'm looking for was what I thought Councillor Sobel was going to amend the motion. What I'm looking for is a gift, and I think that invitations have gone out to whoever will be invited. I don't think that there's any necessity to attend beyond the ones that have received the invitations, and yeah, so I think we're looking at an appropriate gift. And I'm fully confident in administration's capacity to.
Like a pony?
Yeah.
And the pony is
A pony. Yeah. Pony would be good. Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Sullivan.
I just would, I don't want to leave them in the lurch. That's the only thing. And I guess my question is, would you consider, would both members of that committee consider a very nicely prepared plaque, for instance, on behalf of the town? Is that something that what you had in mind?
And the pony.
So okay. Yeah, I totally, and the pony.
And the pony.
I totally support this. Thank you.
Thank you.
So as a resolution to administration that we look at something appropriate to honor WIDEMSA on their 25th year celebration. Thank you.
There was a motion.
I think we need.
Was there a motion?
There was.
Hey, are you punishing me?
No. No, there's a motion on the floor.
Just 1 second. Just 1 second. Rock, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm good.
Oh, too late.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. And the motion, I'm assuming, and I will paraphrase it or whatever, is to provide recognition to WIDEMSA on their 25th celebration and leaving it up to administration to come up with something appropriate. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. 814. Councillor Fuel, you may talk about drainage.
Okay, I feel like I've been drained, but wait a sec.
I can help you.
There we go. Yes, I had a question, and I've talked to Dwight, Dr. Stanford already about this, but I'm wondering if we could look at, again, the area of Maplewood Drive, just south of Brent Boulevard. The town grass area is higher than the neighbor's fences, so water is draining into the backyard. They're wondering if a solution of possibly a swale could be looked at. I don't think it's a really long section, but if it's something that admin could maybe look into and just see if there's a possible solution for them. They're finding a lot of water draining into their yards, mold in their backyards on the grass, and just wondering if there's anything that can be done to help with the drainage issue there. I know other communities have it too. The problem in Grand Point Estates, I know that the area, the walking path is much higher than the developer lots that were put in. So other areas are having it too, but I'm just wondering if admin can direct engineering or public works to just check into that.
And Your Worship, maybe a few comments. You can stand up, it's been 3 hours. But anyway, once you envision, I went up and looked pretty close. You've got Brent Boulevard going along, and then you've got the grass, and it goes up probably, I never measured, 10 feet, and it's at a slant, and the water hits there and runs on. But about this far from the fence, it drops off like that. So that when it rains hard, and the other day it did, and the rain hit the top and over top, went under the fence and right into their backyards. So anyway, about the only way that I figured we could do anything, but it is costly. You'd have to get a price and all this. In some areas, they had the concrete shaped like this. And if we had something like that there, then it would drain away from there. But if you go up there and look after rain, they all get a lot of water.
Did you, oh, sorry.
Just a question, when you're saying all, so do you, any idea how many houses we're
Oh,
doing?
there's a lot. There's a bunch of them there. But in the new area, see, that's been there for a long time.
Mhm.
But if you go to the new areas, it's not shaped that way at all. And it's not a problem. And you can't fill that back area with dirt, otherwise you'd have mud, and it would rot out the fence very quick. So we'll come back with a cost of what it would, we'll check how many houses. But when I walked over there, there's a lot.
And there are some houses that go south on Maplewood Drive as well.
Yeah.
What about those ones that are south of Brentwood School? Because that path's pretty high too, to the ones that slope off
Yes, there's
by
several
the,
places.
by the
Yeah.
church, yeah.
Okay.
Good, thank you. We're under committee and department reports now. Deputy Mayor Sobel, do you have any reports that you?
Reports?
Yeah, that's.
Today's not report day.
Well, I think we have a couple in the.
Just mine,
Oh, okay.
just
Okay.
mine. And I think you have the reports before
Yes.
you.
Yeah. Yes, we
And
do.
if you have any questions, the only thing that I would like to add, in addition to the Strathmore Library report, is the initiative of the Little Free Library Boxes, which is being undertaken by Strathmore Library, and maybe Brad can talk about that. Chris Dumont, who was just nominated to be a member of the library board tonight, is taking that on. And so there is a wish to put these little free library boxes in people's yards or have people adopt them and look after them. And one of the things that the library board did was went to people in our community, and I'd like to acknowledge those people. We went to Gary Blyer of Strathmore Flooring, and he donated a significant amount of materials for this to be built. Colin Huckstead offered his services and the services of his staff to gather up material and store them for people who want to build these little structures. And Abe Fair Contracting went as far as saying, here's our phone number, contact us at any time, we'll take you over to our Quonset and you can help yourself. So it's been wonderfully well supported by the community. And we're really excited about being able to move the project forward and hopefully kick it off consistent with the SRAC art walk in the fall. And I'm very grateful to Linda and Betty Ann for attending SRAC when I was sick, and really appreciate it, and doing the report that you have. I think that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions between councillors or to administration? Councillor Walsh.
Your Worship, I do to Dr. Stanford. I was reading on that I've received a Twitter feed from Banff, and they're currently looking at putting X crosswalks in to allow the residents to cross either side. So I'm just wondering if, I know I spoke to Dr. Stanford, and he's well prepared. I can see he's got a report and everything. So
I don't know how many have seen this on the internet, what they've done. So anyway, they call it scrambled crosswalk. And they just started on the long weekend. They have an average all summer long of 2,000 people crossing each intersection in the downtown every hour. So anyway, they're trying to figure out how they can do it. So somebody came up with this idea, and it's not applicable to us because we don't have very many crossings at once like that. Also, you've got to have lights to stop all four directions at once. So all the traffic's got to stop, and then people can go across. So I haven't seen it in very many places, and we probably shouldn't consider it for a long time.
I just thought it was pretty neat.
There is one in Calgary near the Eau Claire Market. And it's neat, but as Dr. Stanford says, it's usually works best in a high-traffic area. Alrighty, council invitations. Do we have any council invitations? I do have one council invitation that I received, and I'll just remind everybody in regards to Tim Hortons on Camp Day. Just as a reminder, that's on June the 4th. And that was sent out to everybody.
I don't want to work with Denise again.
Yeah.
Oh, she's mean.
Put your big boy pants on and suck it up.
Yeah. Dr. Stanford and I have already picked a time to attend, so if you can help them out, so much the better. Alrighty, no in camera, and we'll have a motion to adjourn. All in favor? No one objected. Oh, good. Yeah.
All of my kids